Last week, Better Call Saul came to an end with one of the best series finales I've ever seen. If you're a fan of Breaking Bad and you've never seen this show, you gotta stop putting it off. And if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, well, you've probably heard enough times that you need to go and watch it, so I won't say anything. Also, don't watch Better Call Saul before finishing Breaking Bad. That would be pretty goofy. And just so you know, this video is gonna be full of spoilers for Better Call Saul, so there's a quick little warning. With that being said, in my opinion, this is one of the greatest shows of all time. We live in an era where movies and TV have grown closer together in quality than ever before. Better Call Saul is no exception to this. The production value is comparable to many of the mainstream films today. In fact, it surpasses a lot of them. The cinematography is really an aspect of the show that shines through in so many ways. There's so much style and personality behind the lighting and camera work. Just like in Breaking Bad, the camera will find itself in the most unexpected places. The stylish flair of the lighting and composition is so carefully thought out. There really is a distinct artistic approach to the visuals, and it's not without purpose. From the melancholy black and white flash forwards and the disorienting wide focal lengths and the meticulous camera movements, it's snappy and the editing is sharp. There is truly something unique about Better Call Saul's technical prowess that isn't found in just any TV show. And of course, you can't forget about the Emmy-deserving performances all around. Bob Odenkirk showed us a side of this character I had no idea I needed to see. To make iconic characters come to life, you need iconic performances, and that is something that will forever be immortalized in this show. I don't really need to say much more than that because it's something you just know from watching it happen. Every single actor in this show is giving it their all. Really, the main thing here that I could talk about for hours on end is the script. It's clear that Vince Gilligan had a story he was itching to tell. I feel like it's a disservice to call this show a spin-off because it really feels like an essential part of this world that he's constructed. The show does start off a little bit slow. It's not as intense or nail-biting as Breaking Bad for the first couple seasons. It asks us to be patient as the script methodically molds these characters into what they become by the finale. I admire that Vince really wanted to take his time and focus mainly on characterization, compared to Breaking Bad, which is more of a plot-centric show that lures you in with every twist and turn. Not to say that Breaking Bad isn't a character study, it's just that Better Call Saul definitely takes it up a notch. And I really think there is a perfect balance between character, plot, world building, and just the right amount of fan service. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are inevitably going to be compared to each other. As for which one I prefer more, well, I did make the claim that Better Call Saul is one of the greatest shows of all time, so let me explain why first. I think the most effective narrative aspect of this show is how it makes you understand and sympathize with each character, no matter how insidious they may be. Kinda like a Scorsese film, you know, the guy who has a track record of making us love movies about awful people. And in a very similar fashion, Vince explores the nuances of his characters throughout this show. Let's look at some of the main characters of Better Call Saul. Gustavo Fring. He's cold, nearly inhuman at times, yet we're able to understand him. The context of Breaking Bad is obviously very important here. It's important to help us understand his thirst for revenge, a thirst that has completely consumed him. This one momentous incident, the devastating loss of someone he clearly loved. Maybe it was platonic, maybe it was romantic. Nevertheless, he lost the ability to love ever again after the death of Max. Of course, we witnessed this event in one of the most riveting scenes from Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul gives us an even better look at what Gustavo's path to revenge really means, and how it destroys him. There's a great scene in one of the later episodes of Season 6 that takes place in some posh bar restaurant type setting. Basically, Gus is approached by someone he seems to have been acquainted with in the past. This short interaction sees Gus having a sincere rapport. He smiles and enjoys the company of this other man. But as soon as the man leaves, it's almost like Gus checks himself. He forces himself to remember that there's only one purpose he has left, He must get his revenge on the Salamancas. He no longer believes he has the luxury of relationships or friends. Quite a tragic character, but one that we can empathize with. And then there's Mike, the other side of the same coin. Except Mike got his revenge. Now he lives with the fact that it didn't change anything. It didn't bring his son back or give him closure. It really just made things worse. The only thing really keeping him going is his granddaughter and his granddaughter's mother. Similar to Gus, he's cold and he's headstrong. The difference is Mike still has some compassion and empathy for the people around him. He's left with the responsibility of pulling the trigger, a responsibility that is slowly eating away at him. When Mike goes to tell Nacho's father that Nacho is dead, he says there will be justice, but Nacho's father makes the point that he's conflating justice with revenge. Mike at this point really hasn't come to grips with himself yet. It's another great scene from season 6. It shows the contrasting worldviews from two different fathers that are both victims of the same tragedy, the loss of a son. And then we have a character like Chuck, who's kind of an asshole, but mostly because we see everything through Jimmy's very biased perspective. Despite Chuck being the one with a successful career in law, Jimmy was always the favorite. Chuck wanted approval from his mother, and Jimmy wanted approval from Chuck. These two brothers are constantly circling the drain in the first half of the series, until it ultimately destroys them both. Chuck wants the best for Jimmy, but he resents him at the same time. The growing hatred between these two characters is so well written that we can't help but watch everything crash and burn. Literally, burn. And then there's Kim, who is probably the most starkly conflicted character. She's stuck between two worlds, the world of virtue and helping the little guy, or the world of deception and dishonesty. The pro bono cases are the catharsis, but Mesa Verde is the money. However, Jimmy seemingly gives Kim an opportunity that bridges the money and the virtue, the Sandpiper settlement. How exactly do they justify this? Well, the old people get their money before they die. And we get a cut too. Everybody wins. Well, it turns out the plan also involves slandering the image of Howard Hamlin, a man who both figuratively and literally gets caught in the crossfire of Jimmy and Kim's antics. Now all that Kim is left with is a guilty conscience. I think she's one of the most compelling characters in the entire series. As the audience, we want to believe that she has a good heart and she has good intentions, but she's constantly lying to herself to justify these immoral acts. To me, Kim is the allegory for that trust that I want to have in the system, but the ultimate betrayal of that trust because of how easily everything can be twisted. These characters all do horrible things, but we can't help it. We have to watch. In some way, we might even find ourselves rooting for them at times. And of course, there's Jimmy, Saul Goodman, if you will. He's the center of everything. But which of these personas is the real person? Is it Jimmy or is it Saul? Well, I think by the end of the series, it's clear that they're synonymous. He's always been that deceitful con man. He's always been Slippin' Jimmy. But what is it that makes us who we are? Are we the person that we perceive in our minds, or are we the person of our actions? Maybe the things we do aren't always a reflection of how we feel inside, but does that really matter? Jimmy destroys the lives of multiple people. He did it to Chuck before he ever changed his name to Saul Goodman, and he did it to Howard after the fact. Jimmy and Saul are not different people. They are guilty of the same exact thing, lies and deception. He is a lawyer after all, and he is so good at what he does that he lies to himself until he is eventually convinced that they are two different people, when this could not be further from the truth. Through Conversations of a Time Machine, the final episode explores regret as an integral theme. Mike knows what he would have changed. Walter knows what he would have changed. But even after ruining his own life and having to start over as a completely different person, the only thing Jimmy can come up with is a story about a slip and fall injury when talking to Walter. He is still being dishonest with himself at this point, and it's not until the very end that he comes to terms with his regrets. We get a brief scene that shows us an exchange between him and his brother, before the point of no return. Jimmy brings over some groceries. He could have stayed and talked to Chuck, but he didn't. A finale almost reminiscent of Citizen Kane. Maybe Chuck is Jimmy's rosebud. Maybe if he hadn't been so dismissive towards his brother, Jimmy would have followed a better path. On the prison bus, he tells them his name is McGill, but it's too late. You are the choices choices that you made, and he has to live with his choices. His final act of acceptance is his confession in the courtroom, and he made the choice to do so. The series finale of Better Call Saul may not be extremely exciting, it's more ambiguous and subdued than Breaking Bad's. Vince definitely showed off a bit more of his poetic dexterity in this show. There's plenty of subtle symbolism and some obvious symbolism that can be analyzed. With season 5 and 6 still fresh in my mind, I can't help but recognize that it's some of the best television I've ever seen. Is it better than Breaking Bad? Maybe, but then again, I have a lot of recency bias. So maybe I have to sit on that question for a little bit. I think the show has a brilliant final sequence, the bittersweet final moments between Jimmy and Kim at the prison, and the overall great cinematography of that final scene, and the final shots of Jimmy essentially imprisoned by the system that he twisted and abused for so many years. And remember, all of this is just my opinion. You have your own, and I'd love to hear it in the comments, so tell me everything you liked or disliked about it, tell me what you noticed in the finale, tell me all of your interpretations, because these are just my own, and I love different perspectives and reading what you guys have to say. And if you made it this far, you might as well leave a like, maybe even subscribe, and if you're feeling really ambitious, you could even turn on notifications, but that's up to you. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching.